It's the dream. You step off a plane in Tuscany, Tokyo, Zurich, Courchevel. The driver is waiting. The ride is scenic. The house is yours. You've done it. You've bought back your freedom across multiple time zones. But behind that image, behind the neatly staged scene of homes around the world, lies a reality nearly no one who's lived it speaks of in public. And if they do, only in the most opaque of terms. So, if you've got headphones nearby, now would be a good time to put them on, step on your treadmill, get on a bike, and let's spend the next few minutes reflecting on the psychological, financial, and operational drag of having homes in multiple countries. Not a complaint session and not an out-of-hand rejection of the idea, just a composed look at what accumulates when you live this way long enough to stop romanticizing it. This is Tang from Well Situated. These are my opinions and constitute neither legally certified nor professional advice. Let's begin with a principle I've come to trust, and maybe you have too. Every asset arrives with a residue. It may be in upkeep or in attention. It may be legal, emotional, or simply logistical, but it's there. And across international borders, those residues add up, and then they compound. The first promise of a second or third home is optionality, the ability to wake up and choose Paris in the spring, Sydney in winter. It feels like freedom. But there's a fair chance that instead of more options, you just end up with more commitments. You now have fixed locations in a world that is increasingly fluid. Your December trip to Bali is now shadowed by the sense that you should be spending time at your house on the Algarve or checking on the property in Mexico City. Freedom quietly begins to feel like obligation. Cross-border complexity can get downright administrative, and what no one includes in the listing photos is multiple utility providers in languages you don't speak, local tax regimes with distinct filing calendars, maintenance standards that vary by culture and city, different expectations about insurance, renovation, tenant law. It's a global lifestyle, but also a tremendous spreadsheet. Unless you've built a robust infrastructure of property managers, lawyers, accountants, and key assistants on the ground with clear communication and oversight, you are that infrastructure. All the emails and local notices don't stop because you've changed time zones. In the same way the best investors in the world avoid owning businesses they don't understand, many high net worth individuals eventually reduce their international exposure. Not for the lack of means, but because complexity has a cost, a headline cost and a cognitive one. Let's talk psychological yield for a moment. Think of it as the internal personal return an asset provides relative to the attention it demands. A minimalist apartment you adore in one city might have a high psychological yield. It gives more than it takes. But as you add homes, yield tends to diminish, exponentially so. Perhaps you begin to notice subtle changes. You spend more time managing than enjoying. You forget what's in each home, routinely duplicating purchases by accident. You start to nurse a low-grade guilt when one of your homes sits empty. You hesitate to visit new places because, air quotes, we should use what we have. Instead of luxury, you've manufactured for yourself a kind of quiet debt measured in attention rather than dollars. There is a myth of set and forget. We live in an age of outsourcing, concierge services, smart home systems, remote management tools. The promise is you don't have to be there, you just need to own. But ownership is not passive, not truly. Even with help, things break. Tenants churn, neighborhoods change. A government might reclassify foreign owners, impose new taxes. You don't notice these things until they matter, and then they really matter. Social dislocation is another concern. With multiple homes, there's often no primary gravity. Your social ties start to thin. You might not know your neighbors. Friendships are maintained via texts and chance encounters in airports. You begin to feel like a permanent guest in each of your own homes. The Ray Oldenburg third place, the social environment that exists outside the home and work, for many global citizens, that space disappears. The residue of multiple home ownership becomes isolation. A lifestyle you've crafted to be enriching gradually grows to be downright impoverishing, emotionally speaking. Now, add to that your geopolitical exposure, sovereign risk. Owning in multiple countries means being exposed to multiple political systems, regulatory environments, and economic moods. You're no longer just managing real estate. You're navigating regimes, currency fluctuations, shifting residency requirements, changing property rights, government scrutiny of foreign ownership. As we've seen in places from Canada to Portugal, laws change. What was once an investment-friendly haven can become a trap, with capital controls, exit taxes, or sudden barriers to sale. Considering it again through that Mungarian lens, generally wanting to avoid businesses you can't understand or influence, for many individuals, foreign property ownership falls squarely into that category. And there's opportunity cost. This may be the time to ask yourself, what else could I be doing with the energy I spend managing this lifestyle? Could that time be invested elsewhere, in deeper relationships, think time, or into simpler operations that yield more? You know a great investor by how well they allocate capital, but even better by how ruthlessly they allocate their attention. A second or third home abroad often starts as a passion, then becomes a quiet tax on attention. There's the purchase cost, then there's the recurring cost of follow-through. Of course, we shouldn't throw out the idea entirely. There is a version of this lifestyle that works. But it works with specific practicalities in place and circumstances well outside the fantasies most imagined. The people I've seen manage this well, myself currently included, tend to have a limited number of properties, often just two, a strong base of operations, one true home, dedicated local management with clear oversight, legal and financial fluency across jurisdictions, and most importantly, a reason for each location beyond novelty. If your pied-à-terre in London is a hub for business and your home in Provence is a place for multi-generational summers, that's more than a fantastical whim. That's a rationale. When each property serves a defined purpose in a life with clear structure, your yield is preserved. Over time, however, many choose to simplify. They don't announce it. They just stop renewing the lease, sell the flat, or gift the family chalet to the next generation. Far from a failure, this is an evidence of having learned. They've learned that clarity, sovereignty, psychological margin are more precious than a beach view in February. That owning less can feel like owning more. Discretion doesn't mean denying yourself what you can afford. It means knowing what continues to serve you and what no longer does. Not everything that looks like wealth gives you freedom. and not everything simple is small. Thanks for listening.